Because if you want big, if you want to dream big, you've got to play big. You got to be willing to take the risk. You got to be willing to do the hard things. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable to get what it is that you want. Well, welcome back everybody to episode 11. I am really proud of the fact that I've made it this far. I have 10 in the bag. And I mean, as a new podcaster, I think that's actually quite an achievement. There are lots of people who start off on this podcasting journey and never make it this far. So I am not out of things to say, let me tell you. So I feel, God, my nose itches. So I feel very blessed to be here, be doing this with you. I'm very excited for some of the new and upcoming opportunities that this is leading to. And I want to share a little bit about that with you as a starting point. So just to kick us off and sort of frame up what this episode is going to be about, we are talking today about your next level self. And what does that mean? So the premise behind Slow Living Solutions and behind my one-on-one high-ticket item coaching program is all about how do we bring your future self vision to life? What is the fantasy life that you have playing out in your mind, but you have yet to go and chase? And how do we get around to actually doing that instead of settling for what it is that life seems to just sort of hand us by default? So I had the pleasure of having an amazing Lionsgate Portal workshop. I'll tell you a little bit more about what that means in a moment here. But I found it really inspiring for my own process and brings a bit of a different perspective, different energy in than the way that I typically approach this process. And I think that is worth sharing with you because it helps me in my own growth trajectory and on my own journey to my visionary life. But it also might help round out the experience for you and put into perspective how it is that I work with my high ticket coaching clients, as well as what else might appeal to you or how else we could enrich that experience altogether if you're interested in such things. So before I get into that, we always start by talking about the priority report and my priorities. And I just want to take a beat to revisit, in case you're new here, or I wasn't clear about it before, or we just need to reiterate it all together, why it is that we do this. Why is this podcast called the Priority Report? And why is that a focus in this conversation? So priorities are all about how you spend your time. So as you know, Slow Living Solutions is all about the fact that you can never save time, but you can always choose how you spend it. So we're talking about where are your time priorities going, because that says a lot about what it is that you value and care about and where it is that your life is headed on a trajectory. So if you don't like the things that you are prioritizing because they're not really aligned to the things that matter to you, or they're not really aligned to the things that you want in the long run, we got to fix that, y'all. That is problem numero uno, okay? So I like to go through mine because I need to live by example so that you can see, hey, this is how Scotti handles this. This is why she is the expert in this space. That's why you want to come and work with me. So this Lionsgate Portal workshop that I'm referring to has put me in my feels around my own priorities and the stories that I've been telling myself lately about the things that I have prioritized and my approach to them, and sort of my approach to even giving you the rundown on what my priorities have been. So to take it back a sec, my vision very much includes, as if you've listened to previous episodes, I love my bodybuilding practice. I also really love powerlifting. That is a huge part of my personal identity, but also my lifestyle. And what I love about that is what I guess we've normally like associated with being discipline, because it's a extreme sport, which then requires extreme action, and extreme regimentation in order to bring about the extreme results that you're looking to achieve when you go to compete in these processes. And I, through a myriad of experiences that will not be included in this episode, but we will talk about at some point, found myself really needing, wanting, and appreciating the level of structure that I receive from this highly regimented process of practicing bodybuilding. And that highly regimented, highly structured process then gives me more freedom in other areas of my life. And so it's that nice, like, as we'll talk about here, yin and yang, like kind of ebb and flow. Like we need rigidity in order to then have freedom. We need flexibility in order to be strong. We need these things that seem to exist in dichotomy. And that's a big part of the energetic experience that I learned all about in this workshop. So when I'm talking in my priority report around like needing to drink more water, and did I get my workouts in, and am I doing all the things, like I noticed from this workshop that I was like, I feel like I've been talking about this in a very like lackadaisical kind of way. And I've been a bit lackadaisical about it as of late. Not in the past, like say week or two, but I would say over the past like 6 to 8 months, I have said on multiple occasions, and I stand by this, that my highly regimented bodybuilding practices around food, around sleep, around gym time, around all the things have been sort of this tertiary priority that's sort of sat backseat to building community or building my business. And there is truth to that, no doubt, that I made some very conscientious decisions to make those trade-offs. But what I have been feeling, especially in the past, say like month or two, as I'm moving into a new stage with the business, as I've started this podcast, as things have just started to evolve into the next season, is when I don't take the time to do my workouts, when I don't have my meals planned, when I'm not tracking my food, when I'm not drinking enough water, when I find myself indulging in more alcoholic beverages than I normally would if I were doing all of the other things, that I start having higher anxiety, I'm way more stressed, my overwhelm is up, I feel discombobulated, that like not taking care of my self-care and letting that sit back seat to other things that are, say, my business or my relationships has actually been a bit of a detriment. It has slowed the progression of these other areas because I'm not functioning in my next level self. And that's not acceptable. So through the Lionsgate Portal workshop, I have really come to understand that like if I want my big dreams to be happening, if I want to fully live in the vision that I have for myself, like the way that I am operating and treating myself today is not good enough for where I am trying to go in the long run. So I need to be way more prioritize the things that are about my health and well-being as the primary that I am hyper focused on, that then opens up. So it's the structure that then opens up the freedom for me to be operating and making decisions and moving in my business and in my relationships at a higher level. So that was probably my biggest takeaway from this workshop that we're going to talk about, is how much feeling better, like literally, like mentally, physically, spiritually, like feeling better makes such a difference for how I move through the rest of my life. And the same, I believe, is true for any other person. When you are in a good headspace, when you feel in alignment, when you feel good in your body, you have way more capacity for what it is that you are capable of and what it is that you can tap into. And you're just operating at a higher frequency altogether. So that's what we're going to talk about, is like, how do we get there? Like, how do we do that? How does that fit in with Slow Living Solutions? How does that fit into everything else that I experienced with this workshop and look forward to passing on to you? So that being said, I am very proud of the fact that I have gotten all 4 of my workouts in last week, that I have 14 days worth of food tracking done, that I have been drinking at least 32 ounces of water a day, and I feel so much better. Other things that I have very recently, like as of like today, yesterday, also started doing is, like, I've been telling myself basically since I got the puppy back in February, that I would get back to doing my daily meditation. And that sort of just sat by the wayside because having a puppy dog requires a lot more time and attention. And he needed more structure, and I needed to make sure that that like fit into what was going on in my life before I could like take a beat to go and do anything by myself, because there would be crying and chaos. So we're finally at that point. He's 9 months now. We're moving in a happy direction for me. In a slightly less high-strung, high-stress mode of operandus for said puppy. So I was able to like get in my 10 minutes of meditation this morning. I sat down with my cup of coffee, I journaled, and I feel just like epic. So the goal is for me to continue moving in that direction and continue to make me the priority and the gateway to all of the other amazing things that I want to have come about. So that being said, the Lionsgate Portal. Let's talk about what that is, because I'm like already like sensing, like those of you that are like, oh God, this chick's about to go down a giant astrology rabbit hole. Just hear me out on this, all right? Hear me out on this. If people get to believe that there is a God, and if people get to believe any number of like universal truths, whether you worship the divine, God, the universe, whatever, just stay with me, stay here, and be open with me to the possibility that there might be something here that is true. Even if it's only a nugget, there might be something to this. And even if there isn't, can you still use it as a tool to help you get what you need out of it? Take what you need and leave the rest. All right, take what serves you, let the rest go. All right, so the Lionsgate Portal happens once a year. It is in the sky. The Earth and the Sun and the giant star Sirius all are in alignment in the sky. And so the thought process behind this is that there are significantly larger amounts of like light energy, literal light energy, like coming in our direction during this time of the year. It exists from July 28th through August 12th is like the time frame that these that our planet along with these two suns are in alignment with one another. And this energy that we receive, this light energy that we receive, is thought to be great for manifestation. So to just contextualize a little bit, like if you're like woo energy, like we're not talking about superpowers here, all right? We're talking about like when you walk outside and you get some vitamin D on your face and you suddenly feel a hell of a lot better. Energy coming in. When you feel exhausted after you just had a conversation with somebody who is emotionally dysregulated, that is an energy exchange. That's the kind of energy that we're talking about. Like energy does exist. Like when you say that you have run out of energy or you've run out of steam, you are talking about the amount of energy that you have to do things. This is a physically felt experience. So that's what we're talking about. It's like there's an energy exchange that's happening here. And this energy exchange is thought to be great for manifestation. Now, I just want to clarify here because I feel like even for myself for the longest time, manifestation always like in the wooey way, like I feel like it gets a bad rep in the 21st century as being like, if you just wish upon a star, literally and figuratively, that suddenly like all of your dreams are going to come true and it's going to be a whole Disney moment. No. That is not manifestation, okay? Manifestation, and I'm quoting my mentor on this one, is a way of being, all right? So it puts the onus on us to have to be actively participating, all right? And that's my jam, right? Is like we are living being creatures and we need to be intentional with how it is that we choose to operate in this world. So that is more or less what we're talking about when we're talking about manifestation, is you choosing how it is that you want to show up in the world. Okay? Now, in terms of types of energy, all right? Again, there's a lot that I'd like to debunk in the 21st century, like myths and misnomers when it comes to things that are quote unquote astrological in nature or that are like alternative universal powers. We have what's called masculine and feminine energy. And oftentimes, and I know, again, I'm guilty as charged, like I used to conflate the idea of masculine and feminine energy as having anything to do with like social, cultural, gender dynamics. It has literally nothing to do with that, y'all. Literally nothing to do with it. So I want you to be thinking about this like two sides of a magnet. If you can hear my cat crying in the background, please ignore it. Two sides of a magnet. Like you need opposites to attract to get that level of magnetism, and you also have the polarization of two things, right? So like things that come together and then two sides that repel one another. Okay, so masculine and feminine energy, we need both of these things, and let me describe to you what I mean by masculine and feminine. So masculine energy is what we associate most often with taking action, with overachievement, with productivity. Like we tend socially, culturally to like swing hyper masculine, right? Like we swing way to the far side of masculine energy. And it causes a lot of burnout. It's the go, 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 do, must, should, blah, blah, blah. That is taxing. It is exhausting. And it's because it gets taxing and exhausting because it's not balanced out with feminine energy. And feminine energy is all about receiving. It's about integrating. It's about accepting. It's about intuition. Like, we have to be prepared to receive from the actions that we take. And oftentimes we get so caught up in the doing that we don't take the time to do the receiving portion, okay? It also can mean that we have the people who are like, I'm gonna overachieve and do all the things, and then I feel like I'm getting nowhere. And we have the people who are like, I'm gonna sit in my feminine energy and like wait for the right time. Now isn't the right time, like now isn't the perfect time. I'm waiting for the moment when like the kids are taken care of, or that we have college paid for, or I bought the house, or I did the thing, or I got the marriage, or whatever the hell it is that you're waiting for. Been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting just begets more waiting. So if you are way in your feminine energy, you're sitting tight for the perfect moment and doing nothing. See how those things might be highly contrasting and might need a little bit of marriage in order to balance us out. So you can't just go, do, and you can't just sit and wait and do nothing. Okay? We have to have this delicate balance because that's where the conversation happens. That's where we have the discourse that's happening. We need to take action in order to receive back and get clarity and information so we can take the next step again. All right? Very important as a concept, okay? So as I was in this workshop and I'm learning about what all of these new terms are, like how to think about manifesting in a different way and like how to be in a different headspace, I was spending a lot of time also thinking about like, how does this relate then to my work? Because I see a lot of correlation between these themes and the way that my high ticket coaching program is structured. So the way I'd like to think about it, and you know, if you're one of my clients and you have experience with working with me, and you feel otherwise, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you are interested and you also want to share your thoughts, like by all means. But the empowerment method is really, and I say this a lot, it is a very pragmatic approach to bringing about your future vision for yourself. So I like the idea of sitting much more in my masculine energy. That's usually where I'm at. And so I like to have a plan. I like to know what's coming. I like to be able to like work through a process in order to get to the result that I'm looking for. And I understand that like the process is something that is iterative and happening all of the time, but I like structure. I think we do well with structure. If somebody's just like, you need to like change things so that you can like be the person you want to be, I'm like, cool. That doesn't really give like, I struggle with that of being like, just change your life. Just like stop thinking that way. No. I think that we have to do a lot more structured work. Many of us have to do a lot more structured work than that because we are so trained socially, culturally, emotionally, not to tap into our intuition, not to tap into that feminine energy and be listening to ourselves. So I think it's really important to use one to tap into the other. Okay. So it's a starting point, right? So in the empowerment method, we really start off by talking about I like to re-engineer, right? So I like the idea of like, let's go back to fundamentals, things that we can very neutrally agree upon with ourselves. So what are the things that you fundamentally value? How do you express those or expect others to express those to you? All right, we need some foundations established, right? This is where we come into contact with identifying what your priorities are. Where's your time going? And where do you have a sense of belonging? So we need a lay of the land. We need to set some foundation. We need to be like, okay, where are we starting from? Like, what's the situation? Like, let's look at that from a neutral perspective before we start digging in on all of the triggering identity and emotional pieces that contribute to this foundation that we have. So I like that we start there as our first several modules in the program, and really work through together what does that actually mean and look like and feel like before we dive a ton deeper. So we take a look at, from there, what our self-perception is and our self-concept. And what I mean by that is really like, what are the subconscious beliefs that you have that hold you back from this vision that you have for yourself? So this is where the workshops sort of started, is she had us naming for ourselves, like, what are our, like, if we were to explicitly say what our fears are that hold us back, we had to name those. Or what is the shame that we're holding on to that is keeping us from doing the thing? And that is essentially like, what are these underlying belief systems that we have, that we all have? I want to normalize that. We all have them. They don't go away. It's just how much you want to pay attention to them. But what are they? Because like, half of the battle is like, if you don't, it's like knowing the enemy, right? Like, you have to, you need to make friends with the enemy, right? Like, we need to be able to put words to what those fundamental, like, what those subconscious beliefs are before we're able to ask ourselves to prove or disprove them. If you can't identify them, then you're still at the mercy of them. And a lot of people, maybe you relate, live at the mercy of these underlying subconscious beliefs, these self-limiting beliefs. So let me give some examples of those. Self-limiting beliefs could be that that you're unworthy or undeserving of happiness, that that any relationship that you invest into isn't going to work out, that you could never earn the 6 or 7 figures that you desire, that you could never run your own business, you could never do whatever your story happens to be, that like you somehow don't have everything that it takes to be the best version of you, to be the ultimate, like, fantasized dream person that you have in mind for yourself. And we have to start to like name what the hell that is, and like get it out of you and like onto paper, so that we can start to evaluate like where's the evidence for this. And generally speaking, you're going to be able to disprove like, oh, that's just a crazy narrative that I have playing out in my head, but it does consume me and I make decisions based on it that then are self-sabotage. So I know I've done it. I do it still. I really have to work at it. I think we all do, but being able to identify those narratives is like a make or break for whether or not you're ever going to be able to achieve the dream and vision that you have for your future self. So we take a stab at that as our starting point in one of our modules in the empowerment method, because we really need to think about, how do I see myself? How do I talk about myself? How do I feel about myself? How do I feel in my own body? How do I worry about being perceived by others? What are my shoulds? What are my ought tos? What does my ideal self want versus like what I think I'm supposed to do? Being able to evaluate that is then us exercising like, hey, instead of being caught up in the emotion that I don't have language for, now we can start to evaluate things as being like choices that we're making trade-offs about. And choice is part of free will. That is the biggest, that's our agency. That's the thing that makes us human. That is like, it sits at the heart and soul of what it means to like exist, and no one can take that away. So whether you want to live in that space wholeheartedly or not, because indecision is still a decision, that's really the crux of what we're trying to get at in the empowerment method. Like, it's called empowerment because you need to feel confident in your ability to make choices. Okay? That's where your power lies, that no one can take away from you. So once we have identified, like, what are the stories that you're telling yourself that you're getting wrapped up in, and how do we start to like pick apart what of that is just like not true, then we can start to look at and see what's infusing into like, where do your strengths lie? Where do your interests lie? Where is there the crossover that is your passion? Like, where should your energy actually be focused on? Because I think it's this giant misnomer that our identity is supposed to be wrapped up in a career. There is not a company or a job in the world that has ever promised anyone that they get to have from their job this sense of love and belonging and purpose and clarity and all of the things that they have ever want. Like, no. A job is just a job. A job gives you a transactional return on your investment, and you need to be careful about what your expectations are with that investment. All right. So you cannot be defined or expect that your job is going to suddenly fill the entire identity box. That's a very concerning concept. And so what we're working at doing as part of the empowerment method is saying, like, which part, like, does your career play in the bigger picture of who you are as an individual? It has a role, it has a purpose, it has meaning that is attached to it, and it should be an expression of who you are, but it is not who you are. Does that make sense? Your job is an expression of who you are, but it is not who you are. Okay? So that's clutch, people, clutch. So we want to be able to look at holistically, what are your passions? What are your proficiencies? What are the things that you're good at? All right? That you're capable of. And then what are your proclivities? What are the things that you are capable of that align to your values? Like, where's the intersection of this? So that as we're thinking about your vision, we're thinking about how does your vision align with the person that you really and truly want to be? So important. To just have a vision because you just, you want the glory of 7 figures in your bank account is not going to lead to abundance, satisfaction, happiness, fulfillment, any of the words. You need to have rhyme and reason for why it is. You need to have intention behind what those outcomes, which, like, having a monetary outcome is perfectly acceptable, but that needs to be contextualized in why it's significant to you, what it represents for you, or what it unlocks for you. Because we have freedom when we have monetary means. So what does it allow you to do that you weren't otherwise able to do that helps make your life feel more fulfilled? That's what we want to get at. So we go through this exercise of developing your personal blueprint and then really looking at and defining what is this vision that you have for yourself. Because it's one thing to like know it or like have glimpses of it that are sort of like those like dreamlike inferences. I like to think about one of my early ones was always like me standing in front of like either standing on a stage or standing in a boardroom, like giving a presentation, talking to people, sharing something really significant. And that has evolved in certain ways, but like here I am talking to you right now. So like in other ways it hasn't Like, it's just a matter of like, what does it represent at a deeper level? Like, it doesn't have to be attached to the boardroom. It doesn't have to be attached to the outfit I'm wearing in that vision of mine. It doesn't have to be like situational in nature, but like, what is it about me? What am I putting into the universe in that particular instance? What is the relationship dynamic between myself and the other people that would be in this experience that becomes the vision that's important? And that's just one of mine. I have many. Oh, all of the dreams I have for this house. So we want to start to paint that picture and align that with who you are. So the next phase of this Lionsgate Portal was to really sit down and envision, what does your future self look like? And what I really enjoyed that she did was, we had to sit down and write a letter to our past selves, but dated like a year from now. So if I were to read it back this time next year, that it would be a letter to me now, but written from future me, if that makes sense. And so it gives you this sense of like, who would I be? Who do I need to be? Who am I going to be in the future that I haven't necessarily evolved to yet? I want to tap into, what does my future self feel like? What does my future self think? How is my future self conducting myself? What advice would I give me now, a year from now, is what this letter did. So having this sense of like, who do I need to grow into? Where are my opportunities? Like, what's the advice that I need future me to give me today? And a lot of it is like, keep going, baby girl. Just keep going. One foot in front of the other. It's not a matter of not knowing. You know, you just scared. You just scared of what it means to have to step into yourself fully. You don't get to have big dreams and then not act big. You cannot be mediocre and want an amazing life. That is not how it works. That is why not many people get it. Because if you want big, if you want to dream big, you've got to play big. You got to be willing to take the risk. You got to be willing to do the hard things. You got to be willing to be uncomfortable to get what it is that you want. And it was just like such a beautiful reminder of like, oh shit, like I need to step up. I need to step into what I believe, which is why like telling you about my priority report was important, because if I'm just letting that be my tertiary priority, if it's just sitting complacently in the background until I'm ready, willing, and able, I'm not going to get there. I'm not going to get to the vision that I continue to have for myself. I have to take action now to get what I want later. And if I'm not putting me first to make sure that my actions are aligning to that, how am I supposed to coach you on that? I need to do it. I need to live that. I need to be that, not just for me, but for you. That's how I become better at my role for other people, and that's how I become better for myself. So it's important to take that moment to say like, okay, what do I really want? And furthermore, as she talks about in this workshop that I went to, and as we talk about in the empowerment method, we then have to define what that change actually looks like. So it's not like we just drop a bomb and are like, poof, and now my life, and I'm just like, I'm my next level self. No, we have to be specific. We have to get clear on what it is that differentiates future us from us today. What do we want and need to go and tackle that is going to give us the confidence to continue on our trajectory of growth to get to where we want to be? So for me, that meant what are the things that I need to do for me, which is what we were talking about, in the gym? What do I need to do for my nutrition? What do I need to do as part of my morning routine? What do I need? What are the things that I need to hold myself accountable to doing so that I show up feeling better every day? That's the teeny tiniest little bit of change. That's the biggest freaking change that you can make for yourself, is just to feel better every day. Just to feel better. What is it going to take for you to feel better? In the slightest sense. Every day. That's the change that we're aiming for, is to figure out, like, what is the lowest barrier to entry? What is the smallest habit that you can formulate in the empowerment method that gives you the confidence that you can add on to that and continue to evolve yourself towards your own vision? So that's our focus. Like, that's where it starts to get juicy. That's where I get excited. Like, after we have really looked at what that and defined what that change is, then we can start to roadmap, how do we get from point A to point B? And understanding that, like, it's not this like laundry list of to-dos that require certain amounts of money and you just follow the yellow brick road and everything fucking works out. That is not, we create a plan, but the plan has a lot to do with, like, how do you show up for you? How do you create habits, routines, and systems that allow you to continue to grow in your identity, in your authenticity, in the person that you are, so that you can show up in bigger ways where you create the most meaning for other people, where you derive the most value from your life. That's what we're aiming for. So it has way more to do with behavior change incrementally than it does in, like, setting up a grandmaster plan. That being said, regardless of whether we have a grandmaster plan or we just have behaviors, usually it's a marriage of the two. We have to do the work. We have to do the work, all right? And we have to be able to listen to our desires, what our desires being, like, what are we being moved to do, moved to move? What is compelling us to make change? And then how do we step into that? Okay. That's that feminine energy of, like, where am I, what's telling me instinctively, this is the direction that I should be pursuing right now. And then as we're in that pursuit, we're looking for further information, for further clarity through our actions that then tell us, oh, I'm receiving that back to myself. I'm accepting that energy back to myself. And it's now telling me this is the next step. And then this is the next step. All right. So we have the yin and yang. We have the balance. I like to think of like Lady Justice's scale. Like, we're acting and we're receiving at the same time. Okay. So, like, we have to do both in relative quantities, right? So we never want to be static. We never want to be always in motion. We want to be balancing the 49-51, trying to figure out, like, what, like, being able to navigate that balance is what propels us into our future selves. The better that we get at that balance, that's like our greatest tool. So, so as we moved further through this workshop, we then did, we did a meditation, we did some EFT work. It was fabulous. I am not a practitioner in yoga traditions, so I do not, I have in some respects incorporated some yoga nidras for y'all into programming, or I'm happy to do that on a very bespoke basis, but it is not a standard offering that I have right now. It's just not where I'm at. And I am not trained in EFT tapping, so that is not something that I offer, but it is something that I can provide you with a resource to if that's something that interests you. Again, I think that all of these things are really great tools for us to use. So whether it's meditation, it's journaling, it's EFT work, it's what am I thinking of? Like acupuncture, any of these, herbal teas, whatever is your jam to get you more centered and aligned and feeling at peace with yourself. Like, use all of the tools in the toolbox, y'all. Just use them when they're most appropriate to be used. Do not try and hammer a nail into the wall with a screw, or with a drill. Like the right tool for the task at hand. That's all I'm saying. So if I were to summarize what it is that was probably like the most important piece for me in all of this, and that I would want you to take away, is, again, the empowerment method is a structured approach to helping you fill in the blanks of what this mentor did for me, so that you aren't just diving deep on fears and shames and then not knowing how to conceptualize that or not knowing how to take action on it. And I think oftentimes in very spiritually oriented, life coaching-ish practices, there's a lot of assumption of like, well, you just have to go do the thing. And like, that is true. You do have to just go do the thing. There comes a point at which we cannot analyze it any further. You just have to take action. But I do think that having a more structured approach to how to have those conversations with yourself is what's unique unto this program and what I enjoy doing with my clients the most. So being able to set yourself up to have language to talk with yourself and with others about yourself and about your experiences and your perception of things then helps you to gain more information to make decisions and take action on. So being aware and having language that tells you like, this is what I fundamentally believe and who I fundamentally want to be. And here are the things that I know I am subconsciously sabotaging myself with, allows you to then be able to debunk those myths, debunk those beliefs, and choose differently, versus to be overcome or fall victim to your own thought processes because you get too caught up in the narrative of the subconscious self-limiting belief and then can't move yourself forward in meaningful ways that allow you to grow as a human being. We have to be able to step into discomfort. So, final thought for you. All of this is hard. All of this is hard. And I feel like I say this on a regular basis. It kind of comes back all the way full circle about making this podcast, is like having to step into discomfort. If you had the choice, or if you have the choice, 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, you're going to choose familiar, because familiar is a known, because familiar is comfortable. And we as humans will trade off the life that we actually want, deserve, see ourselves having for the comfort of what we have right now. Even if that comfort is uncomfortable, even if it is miserable, familiar misery will always win over the discomfort of the unfamiliar. So we have to make very conscious decisions to step in and be like, no, I want this, And it's worth it to me to be uncomfortable to get that thing. And I will be uncomfortable with something else when I get there. But I won't be stuck here anymore. And I will have something that I wanted in the future if I'm willing to be uncomfortable now. Versus if I just stay in the comfort and misery that I have right now, in the future, I'm still gonna be comfortable and miserable. I don't know about you, but like, I can't save time. I can only choose how I spend it. I do not want to spend time being miserable. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it, guys. And I don't want you to do it either, because that's not a way to live. And you have so much talent and so many gifts, and you are so amazing as an individual that you may not even recognize yet, but other people, I assure you, other people recognize in you that you need to give back to the world. That is why you are here. You are not here to be miserable. You are not here for no reason. So please take the time to think about that, and how you might figure out how to step into a new level of discomfort to get what it is that you truly want in life, because you deserve it, because it's worth it. Thank you all for being here. Thank you always for all of your support. Please like, share, follow, leave a review. That is how we get a larger audience, and I very much appreciate being able to share myself with all of you and share all of my thoughts and experiences. And I'm so glad that you are so receptive to that. Hopefully it is moving you forward in your own journey. If you are interested in the empowerment method and how to get involved, you can go to slowlivingsolutions.com. You can also find me at Slow Living Solutions on Instagram or Facebook, or even on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for being here today, and I will look forward to seeing you next time. Cheers.